I'd like to call to order this regular meeting of the Lancaster County Planning Commission of April 27th, 2022. A printed agenda is available outside the hearing room, and a copy of the full agenda, including the staff reports, is available at the front of the chambers with the clerk. The Open Meetings Act is posted just inside the doors at the back of the room. If you parked in the parking lot across the street to the north, the gate is open and no parking coupons are needed. Out of courtesy for those attending this meeting, commissioners and the staff, cell phones may not be used in these chambers during any portion of this meeting. We appreciate your cooperation. The Planning Commission action today is final on the following agenda items. 1.1b, Special Permit 22006, 1.2, Preliminary Plat 21003, 1.3, Special Permit 22008, and 1.4, Special Permit 22011. Any aggrieved person may appeal final action of the Planning Commission to the City Council or the County Board by filing a notice of appeal with the clerk within 14 days following the action of the Planning Commission. The Planning Commission action on all other items is a recommendation to the City Council or County Board. The first item of business is the approval of the minutes of the regular meeting held April 13th, 2022.
I would move that we table the approval of the minutes until our next meeting for corrections to come forward.
Second, Joy?
Discussion. Are you?
I'm referring to the fact that they're going to provide us an updated, corrected.
Those are actually for the meeting prior to that. Those are for, there were corrections to the March 30 meeting minutes, not for the April 13th minutes.
Then I will remove that and move to approve the minutes.
Excellent. Thank you, Nick.
Second, Joy?
Okay. Motion and a second. Any other discussion? Okay. Shelley?
Ball.
Yes.
Campbell.
Yes.
Core.
Yes.
Cruz.
Yes.
Edens.
Yes.
Joy.
Yes.
Rodenberg.
Yes.
Ryman Yost.
Yes.
Edgerton. Minutes approved. 9
Yes.
to 0.
The next item of business is the consent agenda. Items on the consent agenda will be called at the same time and will not be scheduled for a separate public hearing unless there is a request from someone wishing to speak or at the request of a commission member. I will ask Shelley to read all the consent agenda items into the record. Once those items are read, she will ask if there is anyone wishing to speak. If you wish to speak on an item on the consent agenda, we would ask that you stand and state that item. That item will then be removed from the consent agenda and scheduled as a separate public hearing under Section 3 of today's agenda. All items remaining on the consent agenda will be voted upon in total with a motion for approval. Shelley, will you please call the items on the consent agenda?
Yes. First item on the consent is item 1.1A, change of zone 22007 from H4 General Commercial District to R5 Residential District on property generally located at Northwoods Drive and Dawson Creek Bay. Next item is 1.1B, special permit 22006 to allow for a community unit plan, CUP, for up to 16 townhome dwellings with associated waivers to setbacks, the requirements to provide turnarounds at the ends of permanent dead-end streets, and the design standards for sanitary sewer on property generally located at Northwoods Drive and Dawson Creek Bay. This is final action. The next item is preliminary plat 21003, consisting of 18 single-family acreage lots on 66.28 acres on property generally located at Southwest 56th Street and West Van Dorn Street, also final action. Next item, 1.3, special permit 22008 to allow for the construction of a new commercial building with associated waivers to a front yard setback and minimum parking on property generally located at 2201 North Cotner Boulevard, also final action. Item 1.4, special permit 22011 to allow for an early childhood care facility in an existing building with an associated waiver to the playground area, fencing design standards on property generally located at 3825 Wildbriar Lane, final action. Are there any ex parte communications to be disclosed on these items?
No.
Are there any ex parte communications that took place or additional information you learned while visiting these sites to be disclosed?
I don't see any, no.
If there is anyone here wishing to speak on these consent agenda items, please stand and state that item.
Anyone wishing to speak on the consent agenda? Okay, I see no one, so I'll take a motion.
Oh, I would move that we approve the consent agenda.
Second, Core.
Okay, Shelley?
Ball,
Yes.
Campbell,
Yes.
Core,
Yes.
Cruz,
Yes.
Edens,
Yes.
Joy,
Yes.
Rodenberg,
Yes.
Ryman Yost,
Yes.
Edgerton.
Yes.
Motion carried 9-0.
Thank you. There are no requests for deferral, so we will now proceed to public hearing. Prior to staff making a brief presentation, each staff person should state their name, agency, and address. The applicant will then be requested to present his or her testimony, followed by those who wish to testify in support, followed by those who wish to testify in opposition. The staff will then be given an opportunity to respond to the testimony, and the applicant shall have an opportunity for rebuttal. Each person testifying should state their name and address and shall have 5 minutes to speak unless additional time is requested and granted. The timer will go off after 4 minutes. The clerk will then indicate you have 1 minute remaining to wrap up your testimony. Once the final minute has lapsed, the clerk will indicate that your time is up. If during your testimony you have copies of documents or materials you would like distributed to the Planning Commission members and or included as part of the record, please provide them to the clerk. The Planning Commission will vote immediately at the close of the public hearing unless the Commission votes to defer action or continue the public hearing. Shelley, please call the first public hearing item.
The first public hearing item is item 4.1, Comprehensive Plan Conformance 22005, to review as to conformance with the 2050 Lincoln-Lancaster County Comprehensive Plan, the City of Lincoln's Capital Improvement Program, CIP, for fiscal year 2022-2023 to fiscal year 2027-28. The Planning Commission should have received a staff memo dated April 26, 2022, identifying revisions to the CIP document. Are there any ex parte communications to be disclosed on this application?
I don't see any.
Are there any ex parte communications that took place or additional information you learned while visiting any of this site to be disclosed?
No.
Andrew Theroff, Planning Department, 555 South 10th Street. So I'm going to do something a little different today. I'm going to give a brief PowerPoint presentation. This is essentially the presentation that would have been at the briefing a couple weeks ago. So it may be a little bit longer than a typical hearing presentation, but I'll try to keep it moving, and then at the end we can ask questions. So what we're going to talk about is the overall CIP process, Planning Commission's role within that process, and then quickly go through some department highlights. So just a couple things to note with the process. We're back to our normal process, you could call it, after 2021. So in 2021, we did the 6-year CIP, but just the first year was part of the budget. We're back to the 2-year budget cycle. So with this CIP, it's a 6-year CIP, but it's the first 2 years that are in the budget. This is our overall workflow. We started assembling it really back last November, working with department staff, mayor's office, reviewing proposals, adding, removing things. In April is when we really finalized the draft that you have now. And so it's been public now since this agenda went out last week. PC hearing today, obviously, and then once this is done, we're going to forward this content onto the Capital Improvement Advisory Committee, the CIAC, and then that goes to City Council as part of the budget discussions this summer. So real quickly, what is a capital improvement? It is designated to us in the city charter. So it's acquisition of real property, acquisition, construction, reconstruction, improvement, extension, equipping, or furniture of any physical improvement, but not routine maintenance work. And typically it's things that are expected to last 15 or more years. So you've all had a chance to see the document. I know you've been looking through it. But in general, this is the general format for how it's set up. We have the project name. Some of the things that we call out in it are the budget outcome. So this is the mayor's office budget outcomes. So each project lists which outcome it is trying to meet. We have priority ratings, A, B, or C. And then this is the most important part. We have the conformity. So we look at whether it conforms with the plan or if it doesn't conform with the comp plan. And then the final piece is we list out the 6-year funding and funding sources. So for comp plan conformance, again, this is specifically called out in the charter that the CIP needs to describe the character and degree of conformity and non-conformity of each project as it relates to the comprehensive plan. So we have 4 conformance levels. When we review the CIP, we have in conformance with the plan. So this means that something is specifically called out in the comprehensive plan. We have generally conforms with the plan. These are projects that maybe aren't specifically called out in the comprehensive plan, but in general, they support goals or policies within the comp plan. And then we have ones that are just not in the plan. It's a topic that's not addressed, or something that's not in conformance with the plan. So planning staff, we did the initial review on comp plan conformance, and with this document here, everything was found to be either in conformance with the plan or generally conforms with the plan. So we have some department highlights. I'm going to go through these just for the sake of time. I'm going to go through them really quickly, but if you have any questions after this, we have staff from most of these departments here today. So if you have any detailed questions on any of the programs, they're going to be available to answer those for us. So Aging Partners had 2 projects in their program. One is the renovation of the Northeast Senior Center, renovating a kitchen that's from the 70s. That's going to be paid for with donations. And then they have their transportation vehicle replacement program. So they're looking at an annual replacement of a paratransit vehicle, if possible, in the next couple of years, transitioning those over to electric powered vehicles. Libraries, we're calling out 3 projects here. The big one is the general obligation bond for downtown library replacement. That's been moved now to the year 25-26. That bond would also include branch library upgrades as well. We have 2 more immediate projects here, Gear and Branch parking lot resurfacing, and then the Bennett Martin elevator. LES is a very large program within the CIP, so just a few kind of general highlights of what they're doing. Upgrades to the Walter Caney Service Center, continued expansion of the automated meter program, in general, replacement of aging transmission and distribution infrastructure, new substations in growth areas in places that align with our comprehensive plan, growth plan, and then upgrades to generating plants to increase efficiency. Parks and Rec, again, another very big program. A few of the highlights, this is a new project, the Outdoor Inclusive Play Improvements. So this is looking at multiple parks and recreation centers spread across the different quadrants of the city. And this is roughly a 10-year project. There is the quality of life bond it's been shown in the CIP for a little bit now. This would help address just multiple different parks-related projects throughout the city. That's been moved to the furthest out year. For now, there's still a lot more discussion that needs to happen on that before it will go out for a vote. Of course, new parks, land acquisition, and park development in growth areas, aligning with the comp plan. And then they also have some Wilderness Park master plan improvements. So when we met with public safety, fire and police, they had a lot of projects that we didn't exactly know how we're going to fund those. So this is a new item in the CIP this time around, a joint public safety bond. So this would be for the fiscal year 2023-2024, $35 million. So a pretty significant bond for miscellaneous public safety projects. Some of them we've called out are fire station modification and repairs, including the downtown headquarters. LPD, there's a training facility they identified, and then some other kind of miscellaneous improvements. The details of what would be in that bond aren't in the CIP yet. That would be a future public participation process to determine what exactly those projects and what those costs are going to be. Within FIRE's program, there's a couple things. There's the apparatus replacement, which is an annual process. And then they've identified 2 new fire stations, 40th and Yankee Hill 112th and Van Dorn. So when you look at our comp plan and our growth areas, these are right where a lot of that growth is happening. With the police department, there's the Northeast Team Station / Emergency Communications 911 Center project. This was originally 2 projects in the previous CIP. It's been combined into a single location. And again, this one, some of the funding for this was already in the previous CIP and already allocated. And then the other police project is the investigative office space project. And again, for both fire and police, a lot of their other projects are just in that joint public safety bond. They're not in their individual programs. Urban development, again, a pretty large program. They have continued funding for affordable housing. There's a few different commercial districts and entryway corridors projects. A couple on here are the West O entryway project and then the downtown entryways project. There's also several projects related to parking enhancements, parking garages, and meters. And much of that will be funded by ARPA funds. Parking is one of the things that's been identified for those funds. Finance, and really these are IS projects. Our technology enhancement project is looking at ways to kind of on the back end and improve how we process applications and interact with the public and do those things at the digital level. And then broadband infrastructure is just an ongoing project to enhance our broadband infrastructure in the city. Solid waste, a couple notable things from solid waste. One is the Biochar Production project. This one will be, the capital cost of this will be completely grant funded. And then the other is biogas to landfill gas, converting that to renewable energy. So we're already converting the gas, and the idea is to work with a third party to help with the marketing and selling of this biogas. In water, a few things. One is the ongoing reserve fund building for our new source of water supply. So that's going to be a significant cost, about $1.5 billion in 2050. So with the CIP, we're putting away little chunks of money for that reserve fund. Ongoing lead service line replacements, and then just in general, miscellaneous enhancements to serve both new growth and our existing areas in town. Watershed Management, most of their projects are funded by general obligation bonds. So they're showing general obligation bonds in the year 24-25 and then 26-27. One notable thing I think for planning is that the FEMA flood map project is in here for updating the flood map. So that could potentially have some land use implications when we get those updates. Wastewater, again, there's a lot of projects in the document itself, but in general, it's enhancements to serve our new growth and existing service areas. Some of the major investments on here are Stevens Creek on the east, and then South Lincoln, Salt Creek, and then kind of working our way towards the South Beltway. There are the revenue does not match the cost right now to get us all the way down to South Beltway. There's a funding gap that needs to be addressed, but the CIP has us working our way down there. With StarTran, they're looking to replace 13 of their buses in 24-25, and those would be alternative fueled. There's also paratransit vehicles that are being replaced, and then they're actually adding 7 more to the fleet. And then they're also looking at a new maintenance bay facility on their J Street site, partly because the new better buses, I guess they're shaped differently and don't quite fit into our existing bays as well. So a new facility to fit these alternative fueled buses so that they can be worked on in Lincoln is what this project is about. And then the final one is transportation. So as you've gathered by looking at the CIP, transportation projects are mostly categorized into 3 big topic areas. So you have transportation preservation, transportation growth, and then transportation optimization. So most of the program is within there. We also separately have sidewalk funding. And then one thing I'll note with transportation is there's a link in the document, but There is a specific online map that LTU has put together so we can see all of these projects in detail for transportation. So speaking of online, this document is also online, the overall CIP. You can download the whole PDF, or you can download it by sections. Separate from the transportation map, we also have a general overall CIP map. So there's a link to this map in every single section of the document. And this allows you to zoom in and out, and you can filter by different departments to kind of get an idea of where these projects are. We mentioned the memo. You got this yesterday. It was mainly just like copy and paste typo type changes. It doesn't change any of the projects in the program. It doesn't change any funding for the program. So even with the memo, that we think everything in the CIP is still in conformance with the comp plan. So next steps, as I mentioned, we'll be giving your comments and recommendation to the CIAC, and then that will go over to the City Council. The budget process will then continue this summer, and we'll see if there are any other changes to the first 2 years. But eventually the first 2 years of the CIP are what become part of our capital budget. So, as I said, we have department staff who can answer any questions, or if you have any questions for me.
You mentioned that the library general obligation bond was moved to 25-26, and I saw that.
Mm-hmm.
Where was it moved from? Where was it originally?
I think it was 22-23, but we can confirm that.
Yeah, Dick, go ahead.
Andrew, in the transportation area, I noticed that there are some limited projects spot by spot on Rokeby Road. And there is also the need to expand Yankee Hill to 4 lanes from 56th east.
Mm-hmm.
There are pieces of that have been done. I don't see a complete road being developed in either of those cases in the 6-year plan. And I'm sure the answer from transportation, and I'd ask them to come up and verify it, is funding. But I would encourage the committee to look at opportunities to maybe get those 2 roads up to grade with the number of things that are happening out in that area right now. The new cancer center, the apartment buildings, the schools, so on. Mm-hmm. And if they follow the program that they did on Pine Lake Road, it's a disaster. The traffic on Pine Lake Road now is booming. But it took well after many things were established in the areas for that to expand. And I can tell you just personally, our own store at 56th and Pine Lake Road dropped 40% in volume during that construction. And it took it about 3 years to rebuild that volume of business. And now is even exceeding that. But if there's any way they can look at speeding up the construction on Yankee Hill and Rokeby, I think that it would be most important.
I guess I can address a couple of those items. Paul Barnes with the Planning Department, 555 South 10th Street. In terms of the road construction items that you've mentioned, Dick, we do rely on the efforts that have been put forward in the long-range transportation plan, and for Rokeby specifically, it is broken out by segment, but a lot of that's based on timing of development that we expect. And I think as you see development happening along Yankee Hill, it's kind of happening as development occurs as well. When construction happens, houses go up, commercial centers go up, they're paying impact fees, and that development helps pay for those improvements. Road costs are not inexpensive, and so we need to pull from multiple sources of funding in order to make those projects happen. And so not only the local sources that we see, but also on the federal side, we're pulling in from that, and we'll explain a little bit more of that in the TIP item later on the agenda. I think we can definitely appreciate the comments and the headaches that people experience during any type of construction. It's definitely considered when those recommendations are brought forward. I think it's definitely a matter of the funding and bringing that all together.
Well, Yankee Hill between 56th and 70th on the north side is almost completely built out now. And there still is only a 2-lane road there. So I would encourage, and I know that Kruger's development from 70th East is filling up quite quickly.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's time we get those upgraded. So that's just my comment.
I will note on the library question, in the current CIP, it was shown for a bond in 22-23.
Thank you.
I'll take this opportunity to make another comment. David Carey, 555 South 10th Street, Director of the Planning Department. Dick, your points are well taken. I think part of what Paul was explaining, and I will expand on that, is that we have been enjoying and benefiting greatly from the quarter-cent sales tax that is going towards transportation needs. And our LTU department has done a great job of getting projects accomplished, meeting those needs. As you look out to the 6 years of this CIP, you will notice that funding is no longer available in years 5 and 6. Continuation of that funding source is imperative to get those types of projects done and to help better meet the demands of growth in our community. So I think it's very important to acknowledge that at this time as well.
Yeah, I don't think that what's in there is out of compliance by any
Right.
means. But I just am encouraging the committee to look at how they might move those projects along a little faster.
Yep. And that'd be one way, a very important way, to continue the process and the progress we've
Right.
seen with the use of that funding.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Continuing along the transportation area, you mentioned preservation, growth, and optimization. Just give us a quick definition, snapshot, if you will, of, in particular, optimization and how that is a little different from the other two sections.
Yeah, I think, do we have transportation staff who wants to talk on that?
Great. Thank you. I didn't want you here for nothing.
Yeah, I appreciate it. I'm Thomas Schaefer. I am the Assistant Director of Transportation for the Lincoln Transportation Utilities Department. And the way we look at optimization, different than maybe the other two, a growth would be somewhere where we're going to upgrade to more of a current standard. We're going back to dirt. We're going to regrade that. We're going to really out on places where we're seeing economic development expand a facility. Preservation is pretty much taking care of what you got. Optimization can fall in that middle gray area in between. So it can be going into an existing intersection and adding turn lanes, or changing the traffic control devices into something more efficient. It can be also looking at the PED and bike connections in that area and improving and enhancing those. So I would say optimization is more of an enhancement of what is existing, is how I define it in my mind.
And if
But
I
it
look,
fits well in between growth and preservation.
Sure. No, that makes a lot of sense to me. When I look at the budget for the next, two cycles, it looks like optimization and growth, that focus in those two areas is really about 50-50, and then the lion's share of really that budget, or at least a significant part of the budget is really focused on preservation. Then does that? Which makes sense to me. That
Well, that would follow with what the long-range transportation plan and principles are.
Sure.
Is taking care of what you have is the first priority. So that's where the
Absolutely.
bulk of the money is being invested in our transportation system.
right makes sense. Okay, thank you so much.
You bet.
Just a second, Thomas. Originally, 56th Street, roughly from Van Doren to Spruce Street, was to be resurfaced, and I don't see it on the list anymore.
Have you looked at our website?
I haven't looked at the website.
I think it's still there, Dick. and I'll take this plug to say, you know, a lot of this printed material is the reason we went to the website. We could keep it more up to date and more dynamic. It is a federal aid project. It's not going anywhere other than in the federal aid process, which has many checks and balances that we need to adhere to. So it is not as quick as maybe some of us would like to see it go, but it does provide another funding source to get some projects done. So it's in there.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions?
Urban development. We talk a lot about affordable housing. It's a big push for Lincoln. And so there's the people who need affordable housing, and then there's the people who need accessible affordable housing, which is even less available than affordable housing. And nowhere in it does it mention accessible affordable housing. And I think that's a huge segment of the population that has a need, that needs housing just as well, and especially when it's tied to TIF funding and other tax-based incentives, that we have an opportunity to put the word accessible in some of those. It's not realistic for everything, but there are lots of opportunities we're missing for accessible housing. Not really a question, statement. You missed a word, that's what I'm saying.
Thanks, Gloria. Other comments, questions?
Andrew, can you share again where that map is? I'm trying to find it and I can't.
Which one? Are you looking for the overall CIP map or the transportation projects?
The overall CIP, and it has like the parts of the city.
So in every section, it has a link to it.
Yeah, just like the first page of every section.
Okay, I see it now.
Yeah.
In the finance area, you mentioned that the primary focus is on infrastructure and broadband. That's really within the city structure, correct? I mean, it's not about through the city, it's like for the city of Lincoln. Am I interpreting that correctly?
The Visual Vault project is, it's a city project is what that is.
Great. Any other, Rich?
A lot of projects, mostly through parks, but I think also some popular projects have fundraisers. And I'm just curious how that plays into the CIP budget. Are they able to build an endowment, enhance the project in other ways? Can you speak to that?
Yeah, so capital campaigns are included in the CIP, so it'll be listed in what we call capital campaign. There's a few different funding sources that'll be listed that are part of the CIP. So, for example, with parks, there are several projects that mention Lincoln Parks Foundation, and that is actually called out as it might be under other financing, but it's in the narrative. It says where it's coming from. So yeah, capital campaigns are part of the CIP.
Thanks.
Anything else?
Okay.
Thank you, Andrew. So that was staff presentation. I assume that covers the applicant as well. Is there any additional testimony in support? Any neutral testimony or testimony in opposition? Okay. Any other staff questions? With that, I'll take a motion to close the public hearing.
I would move that we close the public hearing. Campbell?
Second, Core.
Shelley?
Ball,
Yes.
Campbell,
Yes.
Core,
Yes.
Cruz,
Yes.
Edens,
Yes.
Joy,
Yes.
Rodenberg,
Yes.
Ryman Yost,
Yes.
Edgerton.
Yes.
I
And-
would move that we approve Comprehensive Plan Conformance 22005.
Is there a second?
Second, Paul.
Discussion?
I think they've got a well laid out plan there. Unfortunately, there's always projects we can't afford and that we'd like to see added. But overall, it appears that each of the departments has come forth with some very realistic needs and the funding to accomplish them. So I'll be supporting this.
I will also be supporting this. This certainly reflects a lot of time and energy and focus for some of the folks here in the room today, and we appreciate all the departments coming together, working together to find compromises as needed, as always required in a city of this size. And I think that it provides us an opportunity to move our city forward, and I will be supporting this as well. Shelley?
Okay, this is a motion to approve Comprehensive Plan Conformance 22005 as revised in the memo that was dated April 26, 2022. Ball?
Yes.
Campbell?
Yes.
Orr?
Yes.
Cruz?
Yes.
Edens?
Yes.
Joy?
Yes.
Rodenberg?
Yes.
Ryman Yost?
Yes.
Edgerton.
Yes.
Motion carried 9-0. Okay, the next items up for public hearing is item 4.2A, miscellaneous 22002, to revise the Lancaster County Fiscally Constrained Plan in the 2050 Long Range Transportation Plan to include South 68th Street from Firth Road to Stagecoach Road. And item 4.2B, miscellaneous 22003, to revise the draft of fiscal year 2023 to fiscal year 2026 Transportation Improvement Plan, TIP, for conformance with the current Lincoln Metropolitan Planning Organization, MPO, Long Range Transportation Plan. Are there any ex parte communication to be disclosed on these applications?
I see none.
Are there any ex parte communications that took place or additional information you learned while visiting any of these sites to be disclosed?
No. Paul?
Good afternoon again. Paul Barnes with the Planning Department and also the Lincoln MPO, 555 South 10th Street. The miscellaneous agenda item that's before you is a request from Lancaster County Engineering as well as the Planning Department to amend the fiscally constrained project list for Lancaster County in the recently approved long-range transportation plan for 2050. That was approved through the MPO process December 15th of 2021. We did include a fiscally constrained list of county projects in that updated LRTP. And one of the projects that was in what we call the illustrative list or the overall needs-based list is this segment of South 68th Street from Stagecoach Road to Firth Road. The request is to actually move that up into the fiscally constrained list because funding has been identified. There was an announcement of an award through the state for safety funds to help pay for that project. This segment of South 68th Street has been part of several studies over the past few years and identified for improvement based on volumes and future projections in this area. So moving this up and getting this project completed will meet needs in that area. I wanted to mention just a couple more details. In order to amend the fiscally constrained plan, we have to keep it fiscally constrained. So there's an adjustment of projects in that list, and those are included in the staff report. I'll just note those. So by adding the 68th Street project, we're also removing a couple of other projects. One of those is West Van Dorn from Southwest 140th to Southwest 112th. That'll be moved to the illustrative list. It is a road segment on the western edge of our county. If funding becomes available, if needs increase, we'll revisit that project in the future. And then also removing the Southwest 42nd Street project from West Hallam Road to West Pella Road. This project is actually going to be completed with other funds, and so will not be using or competing for those federal funds that are in the fiscally constrained list. I'll just note that in terms of process, this did go before the MPO Technical Committee on April 14th, and they did review and recommend approval of the amendment. Our process for amending the LRTP requires us to come before this body at a public hearing and request your input and your vote. All of the comments that we receive on this item will be forwarded to the MPO Officials Committee. They're meeting on May 12th, and we'll take final action at that time. Any questions?
Questions for Paul?
It's always great to hear grant funding available. It's nice. Get to move some things around. That's awesome.
Thank you, Paul.
All right.
Is there any testimony in support of this application? Is there any testimony? Oh, yes, please come up. I'm just moving on, moving right along.
Didn't move fast enough. I'm Kelly Elke. I'm the city administrator with the city of Hickman, 115 Locust Street. And I just wanted to share our support of the revision of the plan to include South 68th Street from Firth Road to Stagecoach Road on behalf of the safety concerns we all have as parents and employers in the area, and for the students, parents, the teachers, and all of the staff members at the school as well. So we appreciate the support of this revision. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions for her? Okay. Any other testimony in support? Is there any neutral testimony or testimony in opposition? Additional staff questions? If not, I'll take a motion to close.
I move that we close the public hearing.
Second, Core?
Shelley?
Ball,
Yes.
Campbell,
Yes.
Core,
Yes.
Cruz,
Yes.
Edens,
Yes.
Joy,
Yes.
Rodenberg,
Yes.
Ryman Yost,
Yes.
Edgerton.
Yes.
Public hearing closed, 9-0.
I would move that we approve miscellaneous 22002 to revise the physically constrained plan in 2015 long-range planning.
Second, Joy.
Discussion, and let's discuss both items together, and then we can, or should we,
Or one at a time?
would you like us to discuss them separately?
Yeah, so the item that's following up, I believe, is the 2023-2026 TIP. So
Yes.
we'll have a separate hearing on that, separate
Excellent.
action. I have a presentation as well. so
Excellent.
I want to.
I wasn't blowing you off. I'm sorry, Paul. I was just moving on.
Knowing that with Norris on 68th Street,
Yeah.
this is very, very important and should have a higher priority than it did before.
Absolutely.
Agree.
Yeah, and I'll be supporting this motion also, and I truly appreciate the efforts to bring this forward, like we talked about, addressing immediate needs like this.
Absolutely, I agree. I think that we all know that that area of our county is growing pretty quickly, and we want to ensure that we grow in a safe way that accommodates our community as a whole. So, Shelley?
Ball,
Yes.
Campbell,
Yes.
Core,
Yes.
Cruz,
Yes.
Edens,
Yes.
Joy,
Yes.
Rodenberg,
Yes.
Ryman Yost,
Yes.
Edgerton.
Yes.
Motion carried, 9-0.
And I would move that we approve.
Nope.
Nope.
Not yet. Paul's going to talk to us farther.
You were trying to skip that PowerPoint.
Trying to shorten him up here.
Nice weather outside, we're anxious.
No doubt. That's awesome.
Hint, hint. All right, so, yeah, this is the next agenda item. It's the Transportation Improvement Program for fiscal years 23 through 26. I'll briefly go through the slides. You did see some of this because we closely coordinate with the Capital Improvement Program, but this is coming before you as an MPO recommending body. Again, this will be forwarded on to the MPO officials committee on May 12th for their final action. So I've said some of this already, but we do a TIP as a requirement to receive federal funds as part of our planning efforts within the MPO. So any project that receives or is planned to receive federal funds is considered regionally significant, is included in the TIP. And we also take a multimodal focus. So it's not just roads for vehicles, but we also look at trails and sidewalks and public transit in the document. We do coordinate with the state TIP. They essentially pull together all the MPO TIPs and then have a statewide TIP. That process will happen after we go through the MPO. This is a 4-year schedule of projects, so a little bit different than the CIP, which is 6. Those are the federal years that are covered there. And it is a federal fiscal year cycle, so that would begin October 1. And we do amendments to this as needed to add, delete, or modify projects. And typically that's just handled through the MPO structure and doesn't come before the Planning Commission. The projects that you see in the TIP do come from the long-range transportation plan. What we're asking of you today is to review conformity of this list of projects against the LRTP, similar to what we do with the CIP and comp plan. So it is a fiscally constrained document. We do identify project funding, schedule, and budget, and we do coordinate with all of the agencies within the MPO. So that's city, county, state, and all the agencies within those governments. Just as a reminder, the planning area is all of Lancaster County and including the city. We do have a project coordination committee, which is a subcommittee of our technical committee. That includes representatives of the state, county, city, department, StarTran Airport, basically covering our multimodal aspect of the planning document. We do outline a process for developing and approving this, and so we have to go through a public process, again, coming before you as part of that. We will take all of these comments received today, also comments and recommendations from the technical committee earlier in April, and we'll forward that to the officials committee for their meeting on May 12th. At that point, the final document is then sent off to the state for their process to be included in the statewide TIP. Projects that are included in the document are capital improvements, major maintenance, resurfacing, rehab projects, ITS, traffic operations and management, safety projects, and alternative transportation projects, such as our transit system, bike ped, trail, and van pooling projects. So I'm going to go through each of the program areas. Again, there might be some overlap that you'll hear from the CIP. But we'll start off with the state. The state has in the program 16 projects that they focus on with system rehab and resurfacing and maintenance, 4 bridges, 4 bridge repair and resurfacing projects, 3 roadway widening projects, 2 mill resurface projects, a culvert project, and some other maintenance projects. These projects are coordinated with the state's own TIP and are considered to be in general conformance with our LRTP. Over on the county engineering side, they have included 8 projects in their program. That's 2 safety projects, 5 roadway capital projects, a bridge replacement project, and again, all of these are considered to be in conformance with the LRTP. Noting that the item immediately before this agenda item did include the South 68th Street project. You'll see that as number 8 on that list. On to Lincoln Transportation and Utilities. They do focus on traffic management, traffic signal timing, equipment replacement, ITS, and growth. As well as safety and operations, sidewalk maintenance, roadway and bridge infrastructure. They do include a list of their major projects, A Street from 40th to 56th, 84th and Cornhusker Highway intersection. We'll see improvements. A Street, 16th to 17th is a project carried forward from the current TIP. 14th Warlick and Old Cheney has been in there for some time, was on hold, and now is being carried forward. And then 40th Street from Yankee Hill to Rokeby. We do consider all of these projects as well to be in conformance with the LRTP. Director David Carey mentioned before, and I'll just take the opportunity again, the quarter-cent sales tax is shown as a funding source in the TIP, and in the 4th year of this TIP, you see that start to decline. And then after that, no longer available, so ongoing community conversations will be important. As far as the 56th Street project that was commented on earlier, there has been funding put into that project in prior years, and the 1st year of this TIP shows additional funding for construction. So. Over to StarTran. This includes their operational and capital programs for our public transportation system, and most of this is funded through FTA or the Federal Transit Administration and also local funds. Their new projects include 13 new buses, construction of maintenance bays, which was mentioned before, and then also a compressed natural gas fueling station. We consider this program to be in conformance with the LRTP as well. Over to PED, Bike and Trails. These are generally funded with a combination of local and federal dollars. Those federal dollars include the Transportation Alternatives Program or Recreational Trails Program. We did carry forward some projects from the current TIP. I'll just note some of the other projects. There's the Beal Slough Trail Project from 56th Street and London Road down to 70th and Yankee Hill. Fletcher Landmark Trail from North 14th to North 27th. Wilderness Hills Trail, which extends south from about 37th and Yankee Hill, and then branches off to 2 segments. Then we also have Waterford Trail in 2 phases, from College Park East over to 104th and Holdridge. These are also found to be in conformance with the LRTP. We also include the Railroad Transportation Safety District project, which their major project, which is ongoing for planning and work, is the grade separation at 33rd and Cornhusker. That is carried forward and also considered to be in conformance with the LRTP. Just a couple more slides. We do coordinate with the Lincoln Airport Authority on their projects. Most of these are funded through the FAA or Federal Aviation Administration, as well as local funds. All their projects are considered to be in general conformance with the LRTP. They include various buildings such as the snow removal equipment building, some runway improvements, design, construction, and pavement for those, Oak Creek levee improvements, and terminal ramp rehab. And then last but not least, we do, through the MPO, receive Federal Transit Authority funds that come to us from the state. Those funds go for projects such as the NDOT Vanpool project, which services the areas between Lincoln and Omaha and statewide and rural service. We also do have a section, what's called Section 5310 program. Those funds are awarded through a competitive process through the state, and then actually will be amended into the TIP at a future date, just because of the timing of the funds that are coming through the state. There are some CARES Act funds, but I think that the projects have been selected. We just need to get confirmation from the feds that the funds are still coming. But those are considered to be in conformance with the LRTP. I have just a couple more wrap-up slides. I also want to note that you're probably aware of the Bipartisan Infrastructure Bill, and if you've seen anything about it, there's a lot going on. There's a lot of different funding sources, timing for grant applications. We, with the MPO, will be and are already in close coordination with departments that are looking at applying for those funds. So as funds get awarded, we will go through the MPO approval process to reflect those in our documents, whether that be the LRTP, most likely TIP, to carry those forward. Just wanted to wrap up here. Like I said, we have a project coordination committee. They've recommended approval. The tech committee has also recommended approval. We haven't received other comments to date, but are open for any public comment up until we go to the officials committee meeting on May 12th. Here's an overview of our schedule. After the officials, we will submit to the State Department of Transportation. They'll have a public review as part of their process and then send off to Federal Highway and Transit Administration. Then October 1, it goes into effect. Are there any questions?
Questions for Paul?
Just have a general, from my understanding, how does the, I know it's a state project, but the South Beltway, how does that influence any of the projects being proposed over the next few years?
So that was a state project, like you mentioned, and there was a bill that paid for the majority of that work, but there was a partnership with the city to contribute funds to that. Obviously, you know, we're in close coordination with the connections to the South Beltway, and are, you know, looking at, I guess on the city side, like Andrew had mentioned, the development opportunities that are, I guess, increasing in interest in that area. In terms of any sorts of additional transportation projects, we're following the growth plan that's in the comprehensive plan and coordinate closely with development as much as we can as it's happening to program that. But we did partner with the state to, fund a portion of that improvement, which I guess is to be completed next year. So.
Yes, Dick.
Paul, with Saltillo being our southern boundary jump line for the curvature of the earth, and going from 56th to 54th and 70th to 68th and so on, why did the state in its planning want to put the intersection at like 32nd and not at 27th, and have all of these roads curving into Saltillo to get onto the other street?
Dick, that's a great question. I don't know if I have the answer to it. I think you do. Maybe
Thomas
have an
does.
answer from Thomas.
Yeah, Thomas does.
You.
Thomas Schaefer, Assistant Director of Transportation for Lincoln Transportation Utilities again. If you look at the floodplain down there, Dick,
Okay.
it needed to move to open up development on each side of the road. It allowed for, otherwise, if you left it on the alignment down at 27th, you could only develop on the east side. You would have basically an investment that you've made only to benefit one side of the road, not the other side of the
Got
road,
it.
which you might know.
Yeah.
Both sides of the road's important,
Yeah.
important property, so
Okay.
increase the property value on both sides of the road as opposed to just one.
Okay. That's a very
And it went
legitimate
through a
answer.
lot of public comment and went a lot through that. Environmental process was all part of the decision-making that went into that.
With the intersection at 68th, it will have to dump onto Saltillo, though, to get to 70th or 56th, correct?
Trying to see that in my head. That's in the county, so I've not familiarized myself as much with that piece. I thought that, no, 70th curves over.
Okay.
So when you get off of the South Beltway, you'll go up onto 68th and it'll just take you right over to 70th.
Got it.
You will not have to stop and make a 90.
Okay.
You will transition over to 70th very smoothly.
Okay. That's great. Thank you.
Other questions? Thanks, Paul.
All right. Thank
So glad we got to see that. Thank you.
Testimony in support of this application. Any neutral testimony or testimony in opposition? Additional staff questions, anyone? I'll take a motion to close.
Move to close the public hearing.
I'll second Edens.
Shelley?
Ball,
Yes.
Campbell,
Yes.
Core,
Yes.
Cruz,
Yes.
Edens,
Yes.
Joy,
Yes.
Rodenberg,
Yes.
Ryman Yost,
Yes.
Edgerton.
Yes.
I would also move to approve miscellaneous 22003 on the draft of the fiscal year 2023 to fiscal year 2026 Transportation Improvement Program.
Second, Cruz?
Discussion.
All of the projects listed are pretty well needed and have been on a list for a long time. So
Yeah.
I think they're doing a good job.
Yeah. I appreciate there's a lot of comprehensive information that goes into putting this together. I think that the Transportation Improvement Program as presented certainly is in conformance with the LRTP and will certainly serve our community going forward. Shelley?
Ball,
Yes.
Campbell,
Yes.
Core,
Yes.
Cruz,
Yes.
Edens,
Yes.
Joy,
Yes.
Rodenberg,
Yes.
Ryman Yost,
Yes.
Edgerton.
Yes.
Motion carried 9-0. The next item for public hearing is Comprehensive Plan Conformance 22004 to review as to conformance with the 2050 Lincoln Lancaster Comprehensive Plan for Bishop Heights Redevelopment Plan, a proposed guide for redevelopment activities within the redevelopment plan area, including mixed-use commercial and residential uses on property generally located at the Bishop Heights Shopping Center at South 27th Street and Highway 2. Are there any ex parte communications to be disclosed on this application?
No.
Are there any ex parte communications that took place or additional information you learned while visiting any of this site to be disclosed?
I don't think so.
All right, thank you. My name is Dallas McGee. I'm with the City Urban Development Department, 555 South 10th Street. This item that before you is item of conformance is the Bishop Heights redevelopment plan in conformance with the city's plan. I have a map of the area that'll show you what the area looks like. It is about a 22-acre site. It's just located to the north of Highway 2 to the east of 27th Street. Generally, many people knew this as the Shopco site years ago. The first step in this redevelopment process is declaring it blighted and substandard according to state statutes. That allows the city to assist with the redevelopment with tax increment financing that's generated from the project. This step was taken by you back in February, was taken on to the City Council in March, and it was declared blighted and substandard and eligible then for TIF assistance. Before you today is the second step, and that step is the Bishop Heights redevelopment plan. And the question is it consistent with the city's comprehensive plan? After this step is addressed, a third step is the detailed redevelopment agreement that will identify exactly what the developer will be doing, how the city will be assisting with TIF and other possible funding sources, and that will be then acted on after the City Council acts on the redevelopment plan itself. The report prepared by Planning Department identifies many ways in which this plan is consistent with the city's comprehensive plan, including removing blighting conditions, promoting economic growth, providing mixed-use development, and providing new infill residential opportunities in the built environment. Kent Seacrest is here today representing the development team, and he's can give you more detail on the plan itself, the recommendations that are included in the project. But I'd be happy to answer any questions at this point about the process.
Questions for Dallas?
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Testimony from the applicant.
Good day. My name's Kent Seacrest. I am representing 3 redevelopers on the redo of what Dallas accurately calls kind of the old Shopco Center at 27th and Highway 2. And I would just want to point out the 3 redevelopers are the White Development Company, who, if you remember the former U.S. Bank building, that's that parcel, along with the residential house. The second major chunk is in the middle, which will be just south of the Country Club neighborhood apartments. So this is south of that, is going to be done by EPC. And then the third is the Red Development Company. Red maybe is maybe not a familiar name, but they're the developers of Southpointe Shopping Center. So this is part of that. Just real quickly, starting again at the north, it's envisioned to be this type of office building, very attractive design. The middle, remember we were doing mixed-use apartments, and so this is the latest vision of those higher-end mixed-use, or the residential apartments. We see a lot of people in the country club area owning single-family homes, and they're gonna want to find a new housing situation, and we're liking to have them stay in the neighborhood. So this is what we hope is maybe new homes for a lot of the citizens that might not know it's gonna be their new home. And then down at the south will probably be more office, retail, restaurants to take advantage of that opportunity. As Dallas pointed out, staff did find this in conformance with the comprehensive plan. Staff made 45 different comp plan references how we're in compliance. So this is, if you want to talk about the new urbanism, the new intensity, the new redevelopment nodes, corridors, all the things that a lot of you worked on, this is probably hits as many bells as I know how to see a project go forward. It's bringing in 25% of our growth is supposed to come in within the existing boundaries, and again, we're bringing quite a few apartments into this area to go forward. Let's talk a moment about traffic. This is on 27th Street. As long as I've practiced law, this community talked about widening 27th Street in my early phases, and then put that to bed long, and you haven't seen it pop its head for 20 years probably. And the new comprehensive plans keeps calling it to stay that 2-lane corridor, well, with the middle left turn lane in the middle, so we're supporting that. But there's plenty of traffic that goes by 27th Street and on Highway 2. The good news is, compared to, we just completed a traffic study that we will be publicly submitting, I think even today. This is trying to compare the Shopko to what we're proposing. And while you will see an increase in the AM trips by our project, that's when there isn't much traffic out there. Where the traffic shows up is during the PM time, the rush hour, and the all-day trips. And what this is showing you is we will be reducing the trips in and out of the center by 28% at the PM time, which is the real rush, and then all day 18% less trips. So we're able to hit a lot of the mixed goals, mixed land uses, and not be increasing the
So
traffic.
what's the change? Why?
Why?
Yeah,
Well,
why the difference between AM and
When
PM?
you have retail, which the old center was virtually all retail and restaurants, that has more PM trip and all-day trips coming. The increase in the morning is because of our apartment people going to work.
Sure.
And there wasn't anybody going to work before. So that's the change along the way. Now, the other good traffic in the area is our bicycle hiker-biker trail. We are at the crossroads of two of Lincoln's busiest and most successful trail networks that we want to incorporate and use and help support. To give you an example, together the Busalis Trail that goes east and west at the south end, and the Rock Island that goes along our east boundary, together last year, 335,000 trips. Walking, riding, bikes. So that's a great opportunity for us to try to figure out. But what's really interesting is the traffic just on 27th Street. Last year was over 7,600,000 trips. So while the trails are super important and we want to take advantage, they only represent 4% compared to the car. So we're trying to figure out how to take advantage of both, because they're both really important in this area to be sure we're successful with. And with that, I think I'll stop and try to answer any questions you might have.
Questions for Kent? Dick?
Kent, this is ahead of the game, but the White project on the north end seems to have been the only area that's had any letters or emails or an objection to it. Has that been solved with the neighborhood?
Today it has been. It doesn't look like it's an issue.
Yeah.
We've worked hard. Let me just show you why I think we're getting there. I don't want to ever speak for the neighborhood because while Dallas pointed out we've got the redevelopment agreement to come next, we also have a plan unit development to come next, which will be your specific site plan. So there might be some opportunities and concerns expressed. But let me try to show you what we have been working on. This is the white project, the blue and the red. The red is the residential house. And the reason we felt that was important is to square off the lot. Otherwise, good luck trying to put anything rational up against it. And we think we've put an attractive feature. The other thing we have done, if your eyes can see this is Kuchera Drive. So that's north of what you and I would call the White Lot or the former U.S. Bank. We are building a retaining wall. We're sinking down 8 feet. We are not allowing any commercial or office traffic to access Kuchera in the future. So today, the bank is on Kuchera, part of it. They won't feel it, see it at all. It'll totally cover. This is the house next to it. The landscaping plan, the fencing plan, and the lowering of the site will cause you not to see it even when you drive along Kuchera. You will see the building, but you won't see any of the parking situations. So, and we made the pledge not to allow any future driveways onto Kuchera. So we feel, and you know, if we were starting over, which we're not, and this was a brand new cornfield, which it's not, if we showed, you know, retail and apartments, office is often used as a transition into neighborhoods. But office is coming in at the end and not the beginning. It's rational, but that doesn't mean we don't need to continue to follow the good neighbor policy. But between these measures, we think we have tried awfully hard to minimize any objections of the Kuchera people, but they might have different thoughts at the plan unit, at the PUD level.
Other questions? Thank you, Kent.
Thank you. Appreciate your time.
Okay, is there any testimony in support of this application? Any testimony in support? Any neutral or testimony in opposition? Any additional questions for staff? I assume that you're finished, Kent. Yeah. Awesome.
I would move that we close the public hearing.
Second, Joy.
Shelley?
Ball.
Yes.
Campbell.
Yes.
Core.
Yes.
Cruz.
Yes.
Edens.
Yes.
Joy.
Yes.
Rodenberg.
Yes.
Raymond Yost.
Yes.
Edgerton.
Yes.
I would also move that we find in conformance with the comprehensive plan, the Bishop Heights redevelopment plan 22004.
Second, Joy.
Discussion.
I think this is a well put together plan, and what Kent just presented, I think, provides a good separation between the residential area and the future commercial areas. And getting that infill in that area again would be very important for the city.
I'm also impressed with Mr. Seacrest has been holding meetings with people that are interested in this project, and more specifically people that are using the trail and want to have this project embrace and draw people in off of the trail and give some amenities that we don't have right now. So thank you for having your ears open on that.
Any other comments?
I just appreciate how thoughtful the plan is in creating that, those elements of new urbanism and making this an area that is walkable, bikeable, that people can enjoy without having to drive past.
Yeah, I agree with that sentiment. I think that what's exciting about this combination of retail and office and multifamily, I mean, it really is that mixed use infill that we're seeking, and it's a high quality project. The opportunity to improve upon our amazing trail system, and the connections with public transit and that area. I mean, frankly, there was a time when 27th and Highway 2 felt like it was on the southern edge of town. That is certainly not the case these days. And so we will be having folks come to this area from all different directions. And it will certainly be exciting to see this project move forward, and I plan to support it. Shelley?
Ball?
Yes.
Campbell?
Yes.
Core?
Yes.
Cruz?
Yes.
Edens?
Yes.
Joy?
Yes.
Rodenberg?
Yes.
Ryman Yost?
Yes.
Edgerton.
Yes.
Motion carried 9-0.
At this time, anyone wishing to speak on an item not on the agenda may do so. Seeing none, I'll take a motion for adjournment.
So moved.
Second, Core?
Shelley?
Ball? Campbell?
Yes.
Core?
Yes.
Cruz?
Yes.
Edens?
Yes.
Joy?
Yes.
Rodenberg?
Yes.
Ryman Yost?
Yes.
Edgerton.
Yes. We are
Meeting is
adjourned.
adjourned.
Thank you.